Welcome to Cupcakes and Clarity, the podcast for high-achieving women who want success and fulfillment without burning it all down. I'm your host, Lisa Pirinelli, and every Tuesday I'm bringing you honest conversations and practical strategies to help you create more balance, purpose, and joy in your work and your life. Think of this as a heart-to-heart with a trusted friend. Together we'll get real about the challenges you face, and you'll leave every episode feeling clear, confident, and inspired to make your next chapter your best one yet. Hi, welcome back to another episode of Cupcakes and Clarity. I'm your host, Lisa Pirinelli, and today you're in for something really special. If you've ever felt a nudge or a whisper or a repeating message you couldn't shake, or maybe you're standing at a crossroads trying to decide if you should stay where you are or step into something new, this episode is for you. I'm joined today with this very, very dear friend of mine who is going to share her story where she had an unmistakable goddess-speaking moment. Her name is Amanda Sparks, and her testimony is a beautiful example of what it looks like when God lines up sign after sign and what happens when you trust him enough to follow. Amanda, welcome to Cupcakes and Clarity.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. So for those that don't know Amanda, I have known Amanda for a significantly long amount of time, over 20 years. We used to work together back in the corporate days, and we became fast friends. I tell this story. I'm not really sure why I went to go talk to you, but I know I needed to go talk to you to ask you something business related. And an hour and a half later, I was still talking to you, and I don't know that we ever actually got the business.
We still sometimes do that.
No. Everything's on purpose, right? We're super efficient talkers. No, yes, it still very much happens to this day. So we've known each other for a long time, and you're a dear friend. You're also someone I consider a personal mentor in my life, and many times because you're so open and caring and loving about the things that are messy and making me feel like it's okay. And there's always hope that it'll be better and we can make different decisions. So, and thank you for being here today.
Of course.
And the story that we're going to talk about today is your personal story. And I think, one, it's so inspiring, and it resonated with me so much because in so many ways it was very, very similar to my journey of leaving the corporate world. Although your journey has taken a different turns in all other areas, somehow we still have made it back together and now have worked together again. So I find that interesting, that how it's all been looping through. So first, can you just share a little bit about who you are and what your life looks like today?
Sure. Again, I am Amanda Sparks, and I am a mom and a cord mom and a child of God. And I also am the program coordinator for a local anti-trafficking organization. And I'll share more about that within my story, but it brings me joy to do that. And I absolutely love what I do.
I love that. And something fun. If your life today were a cupcake flavor, what would it be and why?
I gave this some thought, and it won't sound like it because of my cupcake of choice. However, my cupcake of choice would be funfetti with cream cheese frosting. And the reason being is because, like, on the outside, my life is kind of like just vanilla. There's not a whole lot going on. It's pretty even keel. It's pretty mellow. But then you get to the inside, and that when there's chaos and there's color and just bringing it all together for a sweet treat where there's even extra goodness on top. So that is why I would choose funfetti with cream cheese frosting.
My goodness, I love that. And because I know you, I think that is super fitting. What I think is so fitting about it, on top of your description as someone that knows you outside looking in, is the funfetti part, because you are really fun. You are a really fun person. And for anyone listening, I bring up the cupcake question because I She is much more fun. Amanda is much more fun than me. And that was a fun question that she actually loved. I actually almost didn't ask it. So she brings fun and life into my life as well. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. I want you to share your story. And this is basically your life before the shift that happened. So just tell us a little bit about your story and share the signs that started popping up, where you were at. Like, what were you juggling during the season when like all of this really started?
So dating back to my wireless career, like the beginning, it was so fun. And I really felt like I was helping people with what I was doing. And I remember when I first started, this was in the 90s, I was like, this is going to be my career. I'm going to retire from here. It's amazing. It's wonderful. And I wanted to take the management path, which I did. I went from being a lowly sales rep on the sales floor, which isn't a lowly position, but that was kind of the bottom of the barrel with the job that we were doing. And then I became an assistant manager. Then I became a manager. And then I went into the indirect side, which is dealing with authorized agents of the company. And then went to operations, which was a pretty cool gig. I got out of the retail format, went into operations Monday through Friday. Pretty cool. And then I decided to go back into retail and started as a manager. And then I became an area manager over several locations. Be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. And although it was my dream job, it quickly became, I don't want to say a nightmare. It wasn't completely terrible, but it was not what I thought it was going to be. And it was nights, it was weekends, it was 12 to 14-hour days, 6 to 7 days a week. And I couldn't focus on my family, and I could not do the things that I wanted to do with my family. I was working on vacation. I was taking phone calls and all of these things. And my blood pressure was rising. My marriage was on the rocks. And it was just a huge struggle to find balance in my life. There was no balance at all because it was work, 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 work. And that wasn't fair to my family. And I just wasn't exactly sure what I needed to do to change that. And the funny thing is, after I left, and we'll talk about why I left, or what led me to leave. But afterwards, my husband told me that if I wasn't going to leave my job, he was going to leave me. And like, he had a date in mind, and he was like, I was going to be out of here. And then that didn't happen. And we'll be celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary in February.
I got goosebumps. That's amazing. That is so amazing. And scary, right? Looking back, wow, that's a significant statement. I'm sure that was not said lightly, right? That was not just an off the cuff comment. He put a lot of thought, and I mean, hello, he had a date in mind, and you know that's very significant. How many years into your career there were you when this? About approximately where were you at in your career, you think?
Oh gosh, we know me and math. I started in 96 and I left in 2009. So is that 15 years? Sure. There are smart women listening. They can figure out the timelines.
That's not important. You had been in your career a long time. Let's put it that way. That was definitely like mid-career decision, which is what, for most of us that have gone through that, is one of the reasons that we don't leave. And two, it could be that's the reason we don't leave quickly when maybe we should have made that decision much, much sooner. But it's because we're mid-career that it feels like we're used to it. There's comfort in knowing, even though it's uncomfortable and you're not happy, but it's comfortable in the sense that you at least know the pain points. and you've already come up with coping mechanisms around it. Unfortunately, your family hasn't, or they have, but they have a different threshold, and like your husband was saying.
And the coping mechanism was alcohol.
That's probably very common, right? Very common. So where was the early moment where you started feeling that something's off, like the sensation that was something off, but you weren't maybe ready to act on it yet?
There were a few things that obviously just the lack of balance in my life. I would spend all day Sunday on the couch after church. And I was like the soccer mom, and I was helping out in our church youth group, and we were leading a Bible study in our home on top of all of working all that time. So I just had zero downtime. So on Sundays, I would completely, after church, I would nap for hours and hours and hours, which again was taken away from my family. So that was like one of the things. But then we went to a Center Grove football game, and we were with a big group of people. And one of the people that left, he had to leave in the middle of it because he's a doctor and because he had to go save a patient's life. And then I got about leaving, and I'm like, wait a minute, he's a doctor. Helping people buy cell phones. Like, what in the world? So then that was one of them. And then when the iPhone came out, there was some big problem with a release. And my husband and I were on a date, and I was on the phone the entire time because of whatever the problem was. I don't even remember what it was. And then I looked up, and he was gone. He was into the street. And then, so red flag. And then a friend of ours who worked in youth group with us, his name was Matt. His name still is Matt. He gave his notice to my boss and I at the same time and just said, I need to step back. I feel like God is calling me to ministry. And she and I both in that moment had kind of this epiphany, like, oh my gosh, I wish God would look at me and tell me what I need to do. And then there was an article that I read, and it was about marbles. And what you do is you fill a jar with marbles for however many Saturdays that you have left with your child in the home. And then every single Saturday, you remove a marble so you can visibly gauge how much time you have left with your child in the home. And like, I don't even have any marbles to put in because I'm working every single Saturday. I have no marbles. And so that was a big moment for me, and just realizing how fast time slips, and I wasn't even able to add time into.
If you had to look at that moment, either of those moments with Matt leaving and also reading that article and seeing the proof of, like you're saying, I don't even have the marbles, like, how did that emotionally hit you? And like, what did it stir? Did it stir something in your heart? Was it the first inklings of like, the realization I now see I have to do something here? Or still pushing that away, thinking I need a sign. And here's some signs that you weren't seeing them yet.
I would say probably both. Okay. Say both. Like, there were signs. Was I seeing them? Probably not. But realizing that something had to give, but I just wasn't sure what, because I was established in my career and making really good money and taking really nice vacations. I worked through, but it was just difficult to see what my next step was.
Yeah. That's pretty common, right? Like, when you're in it, it's so hard because you're just moving forward with your job and you're in it, and it's indoctrinated in you in so many ways by the culture of the work. I mean, as somebody who worked within the same organization as you, I know like that was very common. Your story, unfortunately, is common amongst a lot of the people that we worked with, of the part of like where the boundaries were not being set. And the example of holding boundaries was few and far between. So the fact that God kept easing you into clarity Did you feel like looking back now, do you see more signs? Have you seen more of the signs that maybe you missed? Did you see how was God easing you in, or do you feel like you were the reason it was going this long?
No, I feel like every piece of my story has God's fingerprints all over it.
Yeah. Okay, so go ahead and tell us a little bit more about your story. So what happened after you talked, here's this employee who's feeling called. You wish you were being called. You got the article about the marbles, the reality of time slipping away, your husband leaving you at the restaurant because you didn't even notice. What else were some of the other signs?
All of this transpired, not those things, but the things I'm about to talk about transpired within a week. And I had this dream that I was doing a daycare business out of my home. This was on Saturday night. And I told my husband about it. And I don't remember his response at the moment. I don't think he hated the idea, which I thought was odd because he's a germaphobe. He just didn't even bat an eye about it. Then I went to church, and that was on Sunday. And the sermon that day was about taking care of our families and that it's our responsibility in the home to care for our children, to raise them to be good humans. And I wasn't spending a lot of time with my son, which I would have loved to do. And then I went to youth group that day, and Brittany had just had a baby, this girl, Brittany. And she looks at me. We're all in a circle talking. It's her mom, and it's her cousin and her sister. And she looks at me and says, Amanda, you need to quit your job and watch my baby. Like, it's weird. Now, keep in mind, the night before, I had the dream about doing the daycare. The sermon was about raising our families. And then TJ and I talked about it that night, and he was not opposed to it. I even think he was encouraging it, honestly. I don't remember our conversation specifically in that moment, but then Monday, I reached out to, she's like my spiritual advisor. She helped just in my journey with Christ and helped me to grow closer to him. And she has 4 kids, and she's got it together and ran her own business. And I was like, this is crazy. I think I'm going to quit my job and do daycare out of my home. What are your thoughts? And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm cleaning my basement and I'm getting rid of all the kids' toys. So if you want them, you can have them. So that was on Monday. And there was something every day. I don't remember all the little intricacies, but then Thursday night, we had Bible study in our home, and one of my best friends was talking about how she needed to find daycare. She was pregnant at the time, and she needed somebody she could trust to watch her baby. And then a verse that I was asked to read was from Psalm. And to this day, I can't find the verse. And I had it in a Bible. And when we were in a move, I gave it to Goodwill, along with other things I didn't mean to give to Goodwill. But it was highlighted and I notated it and everything, but it said something about us raising our children. It's our responsibility to raise our children. So that was Thursday. I don't remember what happened Friday. I don't remember what happened. Well, it was Saturday. On Saturday, my aunt, who lives in Zionsville, was down at Greenwood, and I was at the Greenwood Park Mall in our store. And she was like, hey, at the Greenwood Park Mall, can we go to lunch? I'm like, no, I don't have time. And then in my brain, I'm like, how can I not make an hour for me? Like, that's just wrong. So I was like, okay, I'll go to lunch. Went to Chick-fil-A next door and was telling her everything that had transpired over the previous week. And this lady that was sitting next to us said, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. I just want to let you know that I, too, had a lucrative career and decided to give it up to babysit a family at church. Oh my gosh, that's so weird. And after that conversation, my aunt looks at me and says, so girly, what are you going to do? I was like, I don't know. I think I still need a spot. And anyway, she's like looking at me like I'm a complete idiot, but I had my signs. And so I gave my notice at work, and ended up, my boss wanted me to stay for a couple of more months. So I stayed. I gave my notice at the beginning of November and stayed through January. I don't know that, maybe through mid-January or something like that. And, it's so funny though, because there were so many people who thought it was like some big controversy. Like that couldn't be the reason I was leaving. It wasn't God led. There's no way it was God led. But it was God led, and it was crazy because I left this lucrative career to essentially be a stay-at-home mom and babysit. I had one child I was babysitting for $25 a day. And at the same time, my husband felt led to give up his career. And then he went back to the hospital and was working like part-time for $11 an hour. I was making $25 a day. He's making $11 an hour part-time. And it's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? But through it all, our obedience became a blessing because we made it work. I mean, every single time that we thought that we couldn't pay a bill or we couldn't get groceries or something happened. Like, he provided in those moments, which was amazing. I remember I'd stopped tithing because I can't afford it. Like, even though we can afford to eat this week. And then TJ was like, we can't afford not to tithe. And so we started tithing again, but God was just so faithful through it all. And I remember asking my son, because we had really elaborate vacations, and he got whatever clothes he wanted. He got whatever lessons he wanted. He had a guitar. He had, all the latest video games. And he's not even a big video game person, but he had whatever he wanted, basically. And I asked him, Dennis, what is it you miss the most from us not having the money we once had? And he was like, I miss Mott's applesauce. I think we can handle that. I think we can get you some Mott's applesauce. And to this day, he was 12 when I left, and he's almost 30. And to this day, he still eats Mott's applesauce. But the other thing he said to me once was like, Mom, I'm so glad you're home. You don't break your promises anymore. And that, like stab through the heart.
I just got goosebumps. That had to have been really hard and wonderful to hear at the same time, because you were after fact. You had made the decision. So he wasn't saying it from a place of currently in pain. He was in a place of feeling relief to be there, but to know that there was a time. Yeah, I'm sure that was, stabbed to the heart. Yeah. That is a serious financial adjustment that you're talking about. And I think that's what holds so many of us back, wanting to listen and to see any signs. And even if we're not seeing the signs like you saw the signs, maybe they're there, but we're not seeing them as clearly as you did. Looking back at the, hindsight, it's like, wow, those were so clear. But even in my own story, I look back and I can see them now. Maybe I didn't feel they were that obvious at the time. So it is hard sometimes when you're in it. But what did, other than the not having Mott's applesauce and those things, like, what did that look like? Other than trusting, because I think that's beautiful that you guys did, but I don't know if the time, were you feeling like, I just need to trust in God? Was it that clear, or were you guys?
Oh yeah. I mean, we knew that we couldn't do it in our own strength. We had to rely on God in order to do that, and just continue to rely on Him, not just for our occupation, not just, for our finances, but also for our marriage and for our family, and just relying on Him for everything, because we screwed up. every single day. I mean, I can be in my quiet time and I can be praying to God for, just for me to be a better person or to be kinder or to be loving. And then the second I put that down, I can be impatient with my husband because he said something to me and I just didn't want to be spoken. I mean, it's work every single day. And I mean, I have to rely on him. I have to invite in him, because if I don't, it's me and I am a huge mess.
I would say that is beautiful that you guys dug in that into your faith. Did you know when you were going through all of this, like now I know because we work together, like, which you can talk about if you in a little bit if you want, with allies, and how much we talk about boundaries and values, which is what I coach on so much as well. Did you know did you know any of those things back then? Had you thought about your values, or were you just kind of stumbling along and these things were happening because you weren't living in your values, but had you ever put that thought or awareness into it?
I mean, I knew what values were. Did I focus on what my personal values were or what our family's values were? No. Not at all. Not at all. And working with allies has really helped me there, not just with values and boundaries, but in being able to have uncomfortable conversations in love, and knowing that, we can share our differences and we can talk about the things that we don't agree with. But at the end of the day, we love each other and we can get through whatever it is that we're conflict about, and just finding that resolution. And I mean, we are totally about grace and love and mercy at Allies. And for those of you who do not know what Allies is, we're an anti-trafficking organization, and we serve young ladies who are survivors of both sexual trafficking and exploitation. And we connect them with a mentor and just show them what a healthy relationship looks like. And in showing them what a healthy relationship looks like, we too have to have healthy relationships. So we do a lot of learning about healthy relationships and a lot of putting it into practice. And I absolutely love it. But I did want to say, what led me here also was following God's prompting, because while I was babysitting, I just prayed for God to break my heart for what broke his, and I wasn't sure exactly what that would be. And it led me to work for a fair trade organization. And in working with them, there's a whole other story behind that that's crazy, and I can share it another day. But in doing that, one of our artisan groups from Tennessee, they help survivors of trafficking as well. And I watched a documentary that was highlighting one of the ladies who is in that group. And I learned about trafficking for the first time. I mean, heard about it, didn't know exactly what it was. I watched this documentary called A Path Appears and bawled my eyes out through the entire thing, and wasn't sure how to get connected in working with survivors. But I was like, okay, this is breaking my heart. I think this is what God wants me to do. And I wasn't sure how to get involved. I didn't know anybody who was a survivor. I didn't know groups that worked with survivors. I didn't know anything. So one of my best friends, Sarah, she was helping out in our church ministry, and she had been doing that for over a decade at the time. And I called her bawling, like, Sarah, can I in your ministry? And so I did. And in doing that, it was like every week that we did it, it was a new group of women, and we weren't building relationships. And I felt in my heart God saying, I want you to build a relationship with survivors. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do that. Yeah, to do that. And then through Trades of Hope, the Fair Trade Organization, I went and worked at this church during an anti-trafficking event. And Jessica Evans, our founder at Allies, she was speaking, and I just latched on to every word. And it was like, okay, I want to get involved. How do I get involved? And then I had to wait because we had new mentor training. If we don't have enough people, not lucrative to actually host the training unless we have enough to cover the expenses and everything, unless we have enough people there. So I had to wait a year until we had enough people to do this training. And it may have even been a year and a half, but it was a long time. I had to wait for this training. And then I go through the training, and then I become a mentor. And then on my way to an event, another event for another nonprofit organization, I was talking to my aunt, and my aunt was like, we were talking about my career for whatever reason. And she's like, if you do anything in the world, what would it be? And I was like, I just want to work with survivors. That's what I want to do. And she was like, well, how do you get involved doing that? And I was like, well, I'm volunteering for this organization, blah, blah, blah. And then right after that conversation ended, Audrey Hood and I, she's our former director, she and I had a Zoom call, and she was like, we're looking for coaches. Same day right after that. So then I became a coach, and I coached for a year. Then I became the fundraising manager, and I did that for a couple of years. And then the position that I'm in now, the coordinator position, became available. And I was the fundraising manager, but I was like, well, this position's available. Do I want to do it? Do I not want to do it? I prayed about it. And then I sent Jessica and Audrey a message to say, okay, I really want to do the coordinator position. And at the same time, they're praying about it. And they had all these names on the board, circled my name at the same time. I was sending them a message. So crazy. And just God's timing and leading. But with that, I want to share, like, it wasn't like it was an overnight thing. Like, God can be calling you to something, and it doesn't mean that you're to do it right then. He's got to prepare you. He's got to prepare your heart. He's got to prepare you intellectually. Like, what tools do you need? What do you need to learn about this? Because when I made that prayer, break my heart for what breaks yours, that was in 2013. And I didn't get fully connected to allies until 2018. So there's this 5-year gap. And then I didn't even become the coordinator until I think it was 2022. And so, like, be patient, follow the steps that God's leading you to, follow his promptings, do as he's asking, and he's going to equip you along the way, whether it's financially, whether it's educationally, whether it's physically, whatever it is, he will equip you. You just have to answer his call.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad you shared the timeline a little bit because, yeah, if someone's listening to this and hearing your story for the first time, this is a short amount of time. So it's hard to sometimes put the time frame in, and it feels like, wow, she's been given all these signs and all these things just lined up so perfectly, so fast. And they did in many ways, right? There's many things that you've shared that are like really awesome. And they like, even when you're talking about Jess and then when they're circling your name, right? When you're like, those things align, and those are kind of those check marks to where you're just like, yep, I'm on the right track. But there's a lot of in between those times that could be going by where, yeah, there's a lot of faith and trust that have to settle in. And you really practice that muscle with like that trust and faith. And not all of us on our journey are there. So it's nice to hear just an example of it's okay. You don't know what the timing is going to be. But another thing that I think is so interesting is that you left cell phone, telecom, and you were managing a team, not necessarily youth, right? Everyone was adults, young adults a lot of times, but adults. And then you left it to become a babysitter of like babies, which now, because I know you love babies, but that wouldn't have been necessarily something in the story other people would have known about you. So that's a pretty big leap if you didn't know, like, oh, no, she's actually really good with babies. And, so it's really fascinating that you then have taken this path of your skill set is creating relationships. I'm a perfect example that I walked into your cubicle 20 some years ago for business, and we have been friends ever since. That is you. I put that on you. I know I played a role, but that
You played a role.
So you're definitely the extrovert who welcomed me into your group, your friend group, and just latched on and made it so welcoming. That is a true skill that you have. And I'm sure that was one of the things that made you such a great manager. it draws people to you. And then with babysitting and then the trades of hope and then you're volunteering, right? It's all these things that have led you to use all those skills that you have. And now you're utilizing them in a different way, nonprofit, with youth, survivors, trauma, all these things that are so far removed from your telecom days. And yet that was your dream job back then.
Yeah.
And so I just love that your story represents how your skill set comes into play in so many different areas. And so to not be so closed off from seeing other options in life of like, when you're thinking about, this isn't fitting in my life anymore. Like the corporate thing was not fitting. It was definitely overstepping boundaries that maybe you didn't even know you needed to put into place, or you did, but you just didn't know how to do it at the time.
I didn't even know they existed.
Yeah, I was like, boundaries, what was that? I don't think that word even, like, no one knew what that was back then. Where was Brene Brown back in the 90s?
Right.
And the even early 2000s. So it's just very fascinating to see how your story and how you living into your values and creating boundaries and understanding your faith and how to trust that. It has evolved so much, and it's who you are today. So all of this, like, just a quick go back really quick to your son, Hunter, when he said those things about you, like, that you don't break your promises anymore. Since he's now 30, and I know he's had some big life changes, how do you feel about the decisions you made and how that may impact him today as an adult?
Oh my gosh. I mean, without a doubt, 100%, it has impacted who he is as a person, like his values, and I mean, so strongly our family. And he's a dad now, and I'm a Mina. And like, he puts his family first, and he values that so much, and not just his little family unit of he and his wife and his daughter, but with his dad and we are very, very close as a family. And even though he's thousands of miles away, we make it a point to FaceTime every single week. And he will, if he has got time on his way home from the gym, he'll give me a call just to chat. And I mean, how many 29-year-olds, well, he'll be 30, but he's 29 right now. How many 29-year-old guys just call their mom to chat because they want to have a conversation? And we are really, really close. And one thing that shows one example of this, which is a little bit demented, but he once got a tattoo because somebody dared him to get this tattoo on his butt of a cow being sucked up by a UFO. He sent that to me. He sent me a picture of this UFO on it. Like, you guys are entirely too close. But he didn't just send it to me. He sent it to one of my other really good friends, Susan. You know Susan, but he sent it to her too.
Oh my goodness. That's a funny, I can visualize that tattoo, and I'm like, I don't think I would have thought of somebody having it as a tattoo. That is unique and special, and it is special that he shared it with you. And it's fun that you embraced it. You were like, you saw the beauty in that of like, yeah, he's close. He is sending me this picture of his butt and the tattoo, cow, and a UFO. I think that speaks volumes to the decision you made so many years ago to live in fear.
And the other thing I was going to say is, like, he has shared things with me that have been very hard to hear, as in, Hunter Sparks, I don't want to know that that's what you're doing. But I would much rather him tell me and me get this cringe feeling than him to think he can't come to me. And so, I mean, he has shared some very, very information with me regarding his life or just things going on with him or what have you. And then the other thing is, like, he always knows that I will pray for him or I will pray for his friends. And he knows that I pray for him every day. Like I can say, oh, yeah, I just wanted to let you know I'm praying for you. He's like, I know, Mom, you pray for me every day. but, but also, like, just knowing he can come to me when his friends, a friend of his daughter, just got out of the hospital the other day. But knowing that I'm praying for her and checking up on her, and like he values that. And I think that he just valued that prayer time too.
And he's got extra support from you. He knows it's because you were so consistent. He knows it's there. You can trust it. He trusts that you will show up, that you will be there, even if you're not physically there. And that's beautiful. Way to go, Mama. You did it. Okay. So many nuggets in this story that are amazing. So many themes that are important as far as following your heart, listening to the signs, and listening to your faith and God and all of those things that you did in this journey, which is an amazing journey, which is exactly why I wanted you to come on and share it, because I think there, if not the whole story, there will definitely be pieces of this that just about anybody can relate to at some point of their career or in their life, whether it's the parenting part, the marriage part, the just following your path and your dream and your well-being. I think it's just, it's like this story kind of covers it all. I love it. I absolutely love it. So now that we've done it, if you think back to you back in those days of when you were going through those really, really hard times and you didn't know it was going to turn out the way it has turned out and how beautiful life has been in so many ways, what would you say to yourself back then?
Knowing what I know now.
Knowing what you know now.
Oh, knowing what I know now, I would be like, girl, get out faster. And always watch for the signs of what God is telling you and do what he's asking. And you'll be blessed through the obedience.
I love that. Get out faster. That's true. Because if you think, even if it's hard, the sooner you get out of the current hard, the sooner you're going to get into being out of that difficult moment, and sooner you're going to be past the uncomfortable part of not knowing what is next. That's usually the hardest part, of that not knowing. And it's kind of like you just need to rip off the Band-Aid and take the leap of faith. Okay. So, loving all of that. And now I want to kind of end on what I usually do at the end of every episode is figuring out the joy in the chaos. So we call that the cupcake moment. So is there a moment that you can think of that lately, somewhere recently, that you have found joy in the chaos? Your own cupcake moment.
I'm not going to share what I shared with you earlier.
It was fun, though. It was really good.
It was about baby one. I don't think everybody wants to hear about that. But just like every relationship that I have the honors to be a part is just it's so important to me. Like relationships are my value, or one of my values. And just finding joy in every single one of those relationships. And it's like my relationship with God first. That's what truly tethers me to joy. And so that is of the utmost importance. But then, hanging out with you today and getting to laugh and getting to reminisce and, hanging out with my husband, who is a big goofball, or getting a video of my granddaughter where she's laughing and smiling, is just the relationships. And if I had stayed where I was at, those relationships would not be as strong as they are today.
I love that. That's amazing. And yes, I agree. As someone who knows you and has seen you through your journey, and you see me through mine, I think it's absolutely amazing that this many years later, it's like we're in our own little cubicle right now here on this call. And it's like really fun to reminisce, like you said, and just see how, in this case, your story has evolved. And I just personally love just that I've been there to witness much of it. But when you shared this story with me, which I didn't know all the specifics, I didn't know all the signs, it just hit me and hit my heart so strongly. I was like, yes, if she's willing to share. And I knew you would, because you're just so open and loving. So thank you for being here today. You are living proof of why we pray and listen to the signs and trust ourselves, trust in God, and all of the things that we need to do to just live into our values, even when it's uncomfortable, especially in the beginning, because it's maybe not something we've been doing and it feels hard to make that shift. Your story is so representative of the good that can come from doing that. So thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I share a quote really quickly?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I got this quote this morning and I was like, oh my gosh, this aligns perfectly with what I'm sharing today. It's by Stormy O'Martian. The only way God can lead you to where you've never been and can't go to without him is to call you to a new place in your life that requires more purity of heart, more faith, and more obedience than you've ever known. And then it says, Jeremiah 12:3, you, O Lord, know me, you have seen me, and you have tested my heart toward you.
It's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that today. I hope everybody takes something away that is just really helpful from this. And to anyone that's listening, if you're in a season of uncertainty or transition, I hope that you can take this episode as your own little nudge that God is not silent. He speaks through alignment, repetition, people, timing, and that little tug in your spirits. And that is so important. And it's something I'm also working on, trusting every single day. And then just thank you so much for being here. And until next time, may your clarity be deep, your courage be steady, and your cupcakes be sweet. And thanks for joining us today. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Cupcakes and Clarity. If today's conversation inspired you and you'd like even more tips and strategies tailored to your life, go to lisapirinelli.com/resources for more self-guided tools. And if you're ready for personal support to help you navigate what's holding you back, I'd love to meet you. Head over to lisapirinelli.com to schedule your free consultation call. New episodes drop every Tuesday, so be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean so much if you shared it with a friend or leave a quick review. Until next time, here's to creating more clarity, confidence, and joy in your life, one cupcake at a time.